Well, here we are back again for episode 3. And we are delighted to have one of my old partners working. Mike's an old partner, and Willa is an old partner of mine. Right here. We, full disclosure, we were partners for numerous years,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But other than me contacting you to set up the time and place for this interview today, when's the last time we've done?
About 25 years.
25 years.
25 years.
How's it feel to be back with your two buddies here? How's that feel? You survived.
Yes, I survived.
It's been too long.
It's been too long.
Been too
It
long.
really has been too long.
It cracks me up because Mike always remembers a story that when Willa and I were working together. Remember Willa? Because Willa was we didn't have a lot of females on the department back then, not like today. And she was one of the few, especially on night shift. And remember when they'd call us to Pat? Why don't you tell them about what would happen
Every
with that?
time we could be in the middle of a call, but the minute we finish, they say, we need a female officer to pat down a suspect, and we would have to leave and go and pat the female down. We would go all over the city, outside our district, patting females down. It's just like, this is not, men can pat women down. They're going to be the ones that are going to kill them because they're not patting them down for weapons and waiting for a female officer. So we were getting pretty tired of it, weren't we?
We were getting, yeah, me too. I was with you on that 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, we were getting pretty tired of it. And so they called us one night, and I happened to be driving. I picked up the mic, and they said, hey, Car 2, are you working with a female tonight? And I was with Willem, but I said, I'll stand by, I'll check. No. So I waited about 20 seconds, and I got back on the radio, and I said affirmative on that female. Remember here, Mike was working a different car.
Oh, yeah.
What do you remember hearing?
I hear him giggling in the background. Like, that kind of sounds like his partner giggling. And then he comes back with this big boisterous, yes, I do.
He always thought that was real funny. I thought my scale's about a C minus. But anyway.
But it was kind of how we worked in our partnership. We had a lot of fun with a heavy job, and I always said that's why I became a decent officer, because I had so much support and so much coverage, especially from him. Because he would do my rookie don't ask my rookie questions. And that was to protect me from until I learned, everyone's personality and learn the job. He didn't want any outside things coming in to affect me. So he protected me. And up to this day, I talk about how he protected me and how he taught me how to communicate. He said, well, some nights we're going to fight, but most of the night we're going to talk our way out of everything. And that's how you learn. And that's policing, trying to, assess the situation, identify the problem and solve it, and not putting yourself in the way, because sometimes we can get in the way with our attitudes or our arrogance sometimes, instead of just looking at the problem and taking ourselves out of it and then working with the people. And Paul here taught me that, because he protected me and he showed me how to do it. Mr. Cool Dude, my tall Italian stallion.
I'm gonna leave that in.
My tall Italian stallion. Is your partner married? Is your partner married? Okay, so that's the other, but that's the view of a female officer. But I share that. I work with young people on learning the job, paying attention. Don't get distracted by other things. Just keeping your mouth shut, like for the first year, until you learn what the job is about and who people are. And then you'll be a great employee. It could work for anything. But I learned that from Paul Caruso.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Now, when you came on, we got notified you were going to be a police officer. How'd you feel?
Scared, because I did not want to be a police officer.
Really?
I didn't know that.
I did not know that, because
I did not know that. Yeah.
I was a mother of a 10-year-old working one of the prominent health insurance companies. I won't say the name. And the last couple of years was crazy. It was an awful job. I was a senior claims examiner. I was at the top of my pay. Hadn't had a raise in 3 years. Our medical insurance was awful. We didn't really have any vision, hardly any dental. And I was like charging doctor visits for my daughter. And I said, it can't keep going this way. So I'm looking at the one ads one Sunday morning, and it says, become an active police officer. And me and my girlfriend at the time, who was chasing her husband all across the country for child support, I said, girl, we're going to take this test. So my personality is, I go get the ARCO books. I'm studying. I go down to Acme and I see a cop working there. What's please like, getting those things. I want to do well on it, but was surprised about 5 weeks later after I took the test, I get a call from Miss Eunice Craig without getting my scores. They want me to come and fill out the application. Scared out my wits because I used to wear heels and cute little things. So I didn't know what to expect, but once I got into the job and realizing what it wasn't, because a lot of people have the wrong idea of what policing is, and I was allowed to be myself. And as a female officer, I had to make sure I kept my feminism, and that was a lot of times you see a lot of female officers lose that. But I did not want to be a cop. But I've always been a champion for the underdog, even in high school, about bullying. I'll stand to the bully. If you're going to keep messing with them, you're going to fight with me. Never even thought myself as that type of person, but I fit well with the police department and didn't even know that it was my calling.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Great.
Thanks for answering that phone, too, on that call.
Yeah, Miss Craig called me at the insurance company. I'm like,
yeah.
Really? I scored high enough? Okay.
That's funny. We sit here and we learn things we never even knew.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. I know you shared a story that you want to share with the audience about a call or a neighborhood problem you were facing. Why don't you go ahead and share that story?
Well, being African American, I'm Black. You have a perception of police officers, but I was a community policing officer, which means from the second episode you heard Paul talk about him being chastised by his superior about taking too long on a call. Okay, and you need to speed it up. Well, community policing just kind of embraced that concept of taking all the time you need to help solve the problem and serve the public that you have someone to do so. So I'm doing community policing. I had the lowest seniority, so I got the worst crime-ridden area. Okay, so every time I go out patrolling or whatever, I would check the drug dealers, check for the prostitutes, and it was just so daunting because I would drive up expecting them to, okay, here come the police, and they'll run, but they wouldn't. They'll say, hey, how you doing? And as long as you don't see them, you can't do anything. So I was feeling like I wasn't getting anywhere with them. So I had to try a different way. I had to actually get out of the car and talk to them for one and find out who they were. So I started getting out of the car and speaking to them, why are you on this corner? Why aren't you working? Can't find jobs, and having conversations with them. So I went on and got all these different job applications and carried them out.
Different businesses?
Different businesses, yep, all the different businesses, Burger King, McDonald's, wherever I could get them. And I'll pull up and I start handing out job applications to my drug dealers on the corner. But there's always one guy that's always like hanging back. And I'll see him around the neighborhood, kind of with the group, but kind of behind. He was a follower. And I had some conversations with them, and I said, he's going to get himself tied up. And this is a pretty heavy, he didn't realize it, how dangerous they really were, but we had some intel that they were doing more than just out there selling drugs. So, I could tell he was a kid that just needed someone to, kind of talk to him, and maybe I could get through to him. So what I did, so once I started doing my job applications, so I got and talked to him. So one day we had a leadership acronym. They have a phase where they have a part of the program where they send out ride-alongs. Mm-hmm. So I have this one of the ladies, she's with me, so I'm telling her about community policing. We're going to go over to my area, and a call goes out, check for the drug dealers, I'll take the call, and she's getting all excited, I said, this is what we get. It's every day. People call every single day because they're tired of seeing these guys hanging on the corner. So I pull up. I said, we're going to pull up on the corner. I pull up, and they all start to scatter. She said, oh, wow, they're really scared of you. You must be real tough. I said, nope. I said, watch this. And I get my loudspeaker. And get those job applications. Get your job applications here, like the baseball. Get your bill here. I said, get your bill here. Get your job applications here. And they were scattered. So I did that a few times, and they just automatically they'll stop and they'll get away. They'll see my cruiser, and I solved the problem. But I also start following that young man. Every time I see him, I get out of the car and talk to him, and I said, you just really need to get away from them. So of course, then I get, you get promoted, and you get out of the field. You're not on the street as much. And I'm actually going through the drive-through at the West Market McDonald's by Valley. Like 2 years later, going through the drive-through, get my food, and Officer Keith, do you remember me? Like, kind of, sort of. I'm that guy, from 6th Avenue. The one that you kept talking to, and you hand out the job application. He said, I got a job, and I was listening to you. I've been here for like 2 years. Yeah, and then I want to thank you. Thank you so much because you took time to talk to me. And my thought was, well, thank you. You did the work. He said, no, because you kept on me. You saw me as a person, and that's the main thing, that I saw him as a person, not as just another little black boy standing on the corner trying to sell drugs. But that helped me to want to continue working in policing because it's so daunting when the problem is never solved. You never think you're getting through to them. And here this, I had really thought about this kid, but he'd been thinking about me and he remembered my name. And that's the big thing for him to actually, Officer Keith, do you remember me? And that just touched me so much. And it does. I don't care if you reach one person in your career, you have saved that one person. And that's the part where, the officers forget. And sometimes I think the public forget.
Well, when you first met that young man, how many years ago was that?
Oh my gosh, let's see. I think 1997. That's when I took
You still remember it?
Yes. I took
Isn't that something?
Took the sergeant's exam, bid it to community policing. Yes, and just trying to find different ways just to try to get to these kids and stuff. But they do listen, and they can tell. And I think sometimes even with us, we get so jaded because we worked midnights for 5 years during the crack epidemic. So that's where I came from. You have to start looking at people as human beings and try to identify those ones that you think you might be able to just get away. And he was grateful because they got raided really bad. It spent time in prison because they raided her house and everything. And it wasn't just drugs; it was a lot of things. And then her son was actually, one of the serial rapists that was going around in Akron. So it was a lot of things that he didn't know, and he walked away from that.
You might save his life, Lola.
And that's what he said. No, thank you, because he got away from that. Mm-hmm. But it's just that's part of the job, and we do have a lot of bad things that happen, but when you get stories back and you get that type of feedback and that type of validation that what you're doing is helping people, it's well worth the sacrifice that we make to become police officers.
That's a wonderful, wonderful analogy there, Will. Thanks a lot. Yeah. I know one thing you're very proud of before we close up this episode is, and I'm proud of it too, because we kind of started
yes.
in Akron about repeat call locations.
Oh, yes.
We called them RCLs. And we kept spinning the wheel, spinning in the public, and we didn't even know. But when we looked at some addresses, how many times did we go to the same address in a 6-month period?
20 or more times. So one of those things on midnights was alarms to complete the fights all the time, and you get different officers all the time. So when I become a sergeant and I'm in community relations, we're going to start addressing problem solving. Then I went to community policing and realized, we did mediation with families. So that's what we implemented. We did identified if you had 4 or more calls in a month, we assign a community policing officer or one of our DARE officers, to that address to find out what's going on. Mm-hmm. And they stay with that address and that family. If they needed mediation, we gave them mediation. But once they got that agreement, if they broke it, then we had to, sometimes you got to go to jail, but
that's community policing.
Right. But you playing your music all day, all night long. People can't go to work. Your dog is barking. It's those small, we call quality of life things that we don't think is a big deal. But the people living in that neighborhood, that's a big deal. They're always playing their music. The dog, they won't take the dog in. We have to identify those, and that's what we did. And I think we actually got an award for it from the Attorney General's office for it.
Yep.
And I just looked at it as this is what we should be doing anyway. Mm-hmm. That's actually cops on patrol. That's community policing, But you got to get out your car. You got to talk to people.
Mike,
you can't do it. It's just like you were saying, 40 calls in a month or whatever. There are people out there a lot of the majority of people that can't fathom that. But unfortunately, the people trying to get out of that, they can fathom it because it's happening to them every day.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you call the police, and it's the first time you ever call the police, it can be a really traumatic, experience and stuff, and people don't see what you're doing to help these people out. More awareness, I think.
And it is, and I think, hopefully, I know they're trying to get back to it. But to me, it's just policing. I think we've always done it. When I came, that's what we did. There wasn't always a black and white solve for a call. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. Sometimes you got to give some people some grace. Because your sergeant lets you do that. At least sometimes. Whew, sometimes they made it worse. And then we're talking paper. We're not gonna mention any names, God bless us. So anyway.
Now, Will, looking back, what do you think about your decision to spend a career in the police department?
It's the best decision I made that I didn't know that I needed to make. I did it for a different reason, for job security, healthcare benefits, but then it's something that fit me. And I always say I was blessed to have a seat at the table because, we had lieutenants and captains and detectives would come and sit with us for breakfast, and I could sit back and listen because my rookie don't talk. So don't talk my rookie, but I learned so much and I was interested. So they saw that. So if I was on a call, they mentored me. And I know a lot of officers don't have that, but it's the best decision I made. And then I was able to interject my own personality, my own values, my own ethics, like carrying my purse to roll call, combing my hair and putting makeup on without being chastised. Where you think you're going? But that's part of it. But if you keep doing it, and they say, she don't care. You can talk about me being a girl, and I realized I was a girl. Some things I can't do. I can't do what a man
do. I said it on the radio.
Right.
I said I was working with the.
You did. Yeah, but it really has. It really was one of those decisions that I didn't know I needed to make, and even though my mother, my father, begged me not to do it. But I play sports. I'm used to team sports. I think if you've been in sports and in that type of environment, you kind of know how to be a team player. You know how to problem solve. You know how to work together. And I think all those attributes helped me become a decent police officer. And I was able to keep my integrity and keep who I am and still be cute.
Well, Mike, how about that? You think we're blessed to have Willa at the table?
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, cartoon. Kept me laughing. I couldn't even talk on the mic. Mike, stop.
Thank you very much for volunteering your time.
All right.
To spread the message out to the people. Thanks, Willa.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. I'm glad that this is something I think that a lot of officers would love to be a part of.
I hope so. It's unrehearsed. I mean, we're trying to keep it as real as we can. It's totally unrehearsed, So thank you, Willa.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,